Welcome everyone to the first Java class. I'm Manibhushan D'Souza, Assistant Professor, Computer Science Department at Dr. P. Dayanandapai, P. Satishapai, GFGC, Mangalore. Today, we are going to start our class with a brief look at the Java fundamentals. In particular, we are going to see the history of Java and how to get the Java and install it on your machine. These are the topics that we are going to cover today. First, let us review the details about compiler, and then we are going to see what is the need of virtual machine. This will be followed by the history of Java and the different milestone that Java has achieved. We will look at the different JDK editions, and finally we will see how to download JDK and then how to download the NetBeans IDE that we are going to use during programming. Let's recall our previous programming classes. In our previous programming classes, we have studied that we can write the program in many programming language such as C or C++. All these programming language have their own syntaxes, and the syntax is more like English, so that you can easily understand that. But we know very well that the computer cannot understand English like language. The language that is understood by the computers are binary. So, in order to convert our English like instructions into the binary instructions, we use a special type of software called as compiler. The work of the compiler is to take the code that is written in a particular programming language and convert it into an appropriate machine instructions. However, some of you may not be knowing that the machine instruction that is generated by the compiler is dependent on the processor on which it is running, as well as it depends on the operating system. What do I mean by that? Is suppose if you are using a compiler that compiles your code into the Windows operating system, the same binary code that you are using here will not run on the Linux, that is Ubuntu, or maybe any other version of Linux, or the Android phone, or iOS, or Apple. What do I mean to say is that when the compiler converts your English like instructions, that is your programming instructions, into the machine instruction, these instructions are specific to the operating system and they cannot be simply transferred to other machine and then you expect them to run on them. At the same time, the instructions that are generated by the compiler are dependent on the processor. For example, we are familiar with the different types of processor. The most famous one is the Intel, and some of you may also be aware of the AMD and in particular Ryzen, and others may be familiar with the MediaTek Helio or Snapdragon or other processors. Now, when the instructions are generated, there are two varieties of processors that you can think of getting. One is the CISC processor, that is simple instructions set, and the other one is the complex instruction set. Now, the instruction set that is used by the CISC machine are different than the RISC machine. Also, we have two other type of category, and that is the 64-bit processor and 32-bit processor. So most of us are using nowadays 64-bit processor, but in olden days people were using 32-bit processor. So the instructions that are specific for 64-bit processor cannot be run on 32-bit processor. Now, is this a problem? The answer is not every time. Suppose you know very well that your code is going to run only on Windows machine that is using either Intel or Ryzen, because these are same, they have the same instruction set. So it will not create a problem. But suppose if you really don't know whether your code is going to run on Windows or whether it is going to run on Mac or some other operating system, then you are into big trouble. The reason is that suppose if you compile your code for a native Windows OS, and if your friend is using Mac or any other operating system or maybe the Ubuntu, your code will not run on them, because the compiler will generate a code that is a machine instruction which are specific for Windows, and this will not run on the other operating system. In that case, what you are supposed to do? In that case, you will have to write your program maybe in C or C++, compile it once for the Mac compiler, and compile it one more times for the Windows. And suppose if your other friend is using some other operating system, then you will have to recompile it for that operating system. So this is going to be a laborious process. So is there a way to overcome this problem? And let me specify the problem here. The problem is you write a instruction that is in your favorite programming language like C or C++ or other thing, but when you compile it, the compiler compiles it or converts it into a specific machine instruction that is dependent on the computer, and these instructions cannot be exchanged with the other machine. So what is the solution for this? The solution is, let's look at a simple scenario. You have your C program. So you write your C or C++, whatever it is. So you write your C program. And if you compile it in general way, it's going to get compiled into a machine instruction. Now, instead of that, you compile it into a intermediate form. So you convert it into a intermediate form, which is not a machine instructions. So this the your compiler will convert it into an intermediary form. This is not a perfect machine instruction. And you have your maybe Windows. So you have your Windows, or you have your Mac machine, that is the Apple machine, or you may have your Android or any other OS. So what you can do is, now this intermediary code is not machine instruction, so it will not run in either Windows nor in the Mac nor in the Android. So then how are you going to run it? So you create a separate layer on top of this Windows, on top of this Mac, on top of this Android. And what this particular layer is going to do is it's going to take this intermediary code and on the fly it's going to convert it into the specific instruction that the Windows can understand. Similarly, the layer over here will take the same intermediary code and then recompile it to an instruction that is understood by the Mac OS. In the same way, your intermediary code is taken up by this layer over here and it converts it into Android. Now, what is the advantage that you get with this option? With this option, what you can do is you write your code, compile it once to an intermediary form, then give it to different operating system provided that this layer that I'm talking about is there. So what they will do is they take this intermediary form and they simply convert it into the specific machine instruction which is applicable to the operating system. So you just compile once, run anywhere. So that is the idea. So you compile it once, run anywhere. Now let me go to the previous thing that we have seen. In this case, you write the code once, compile it many a times, and run on different machine. Whereas the one idea that I have given you just now is you compile it once, run on any machine. That's the idea the Java is using. So what we are doing in Java is we write we write the normal English like instruction in Java, like how you write a C and C++ program. We write the uh, kind of same kind of program. The syntax is almost same as that of your C and C++. So you write the Java code, it gets converted into an intermediary form, and this intermediary form is called as bytecode. Don't worry about it, I will explain more about this bytecode slightly later. So what you can get now is you have your Java code, you compile it into a bytecode. Remember, this is not a perfect machine instruction, it's not a zeros and ones, it cannot be directly understood by any machine. And what you do is you take this bytecode and give it to the layer that I am talking about. This layer is called as virtual machine. So you give it to the virtual machine. The virtual machine will interpret the bytecode, which is an intermediary code, and then convert that code into the appropriate machine instruction that is understood by Windows. Same thing. The virtual machine, J here stands for Java. So Java virtual machine takes the bytecode. Suppose if it is running on Linux, it takes the same bytecode and converts it into the machine instruction that is understood by Linux. Same way, the JVM or the Java virtual machine that is running on Mac will take the same bytecode and convert it into the machine instruction that is understood by the Mac machine. So this is the concept of Java. So in Java, you write the same English like code. However, you don't directly convert it into the machine instruction. Instead, you convert it into a intermediary form called as bytecode, this bytecode cannot be directly run on any of the operating system because it is not a machine instruction. To run this code, you need a virtual machine. Now, what is this virtual machine? What do we mean by saying virtual machine? Virtual machine is a machine that physically does not exist. So it is virtual. So we know the meaning of saying virtual, something that physically don't exist. So you have your Windows machine on which you are watching my video. This is a physical machine. On top of it, you generate something which looks like a machine, which looks like a real machine, but it is not a real machine. How do you do that thing? You do it using a software. So this a software, that is the JVM software, it works like a mini computer within your computer. So you have your physical computer, that is you have your desktop PC or laptop or anything. Inside this, you have one more, a small computer that is running on its own. So this is not a real computer. This is a kind of a virtual, or it is like a simulation. On top of it, you run that thing. So what this particular machine is doing, or this particular computer is doing, this mini computer is doing, is it takes the bytecode and it converts that bytecode into the appropriate machine instruction and give it to your machine. So it takes the bytecode, recompiles it, gives it to the Windows and says that, okay, this is your machine instruction, now execute it. Same thing if this has to be there on top of Linux, then what it does is it takes the same bytecode, converts it into a machine instruction that Linux can understand, and just gives it. So when you run the code, you don't see any difference. But what's the advantage over here? The advantage is you write the code once, execute it on any machine. So write once, execute anywhere. That's the idea of the Java, and that's the idea of the virtual machine. Now let's look at a brief history of Java. So this was a time of 1990s. So I don't know whether you were born during this time. So during that time, we didn't had mobile phones. So maybe if you're born, if you know the things, it is well and good. But if you were not born during that time, then understand that we had only landlines. So we didn't had today. I don't know how many of you are using the landline to make a call. Olden days we had only landline, so there is no WhatsApp. There was no kind of internet. In particular, 1990s we even did had the concept of internet. But during that time, the today we know that software is something very the buzzword over here that most of you are familiar is artificial intelligence and maybe data mining or the other kind of data processing, different types of analysis that you are doing, data analysis. So these are all buzzwords that you are using. But olden days, the buzzword was with respect to electronics, not with respect to computers. People were not so much interested in a computer as today. So they were only interested in watching videos using VCRs or watching today. I don't know how many of you watch television uh, to that extent. In olden days, people only entertainment that we had was only television. So television had in 90s, in fact there were only few channels were there, not the channels like 60 80 channels that you get today. That was also not there. We had in the 80s we had only one Doordarshan, and that's the only channel we could get, and that channel was also not for the 24 hours. It was restricted. So morning of 3 hours and maybe evening 6 hours, the channel was working. So this was the time that we were living in. And during that time, like today, they wanted to make the different gadgets, that electronics gadgets that we had at home, maybe the uh, washing machine, maybe the microwave oven, or maybe the television or VCR. They wanted to add some intelligence to this devices. I think there was one workshop that we have conducted, and we know how to add intelligence to the different how to make the program more intelligent, and we've seen a lot of things over there. Now, this was the olden days idea. And what people were doing is, suppose if I have my washing machine, how do I program it? Okay, so that it will run for 5 minutes and then switch it off. Or how do I do the same thing with the microwave oven? So I will set the temperature and then set the time, and the microprocessor will not the microwave oven will bake my content with that temperature for that much of time and automatically switch off. So this was the idea that people were using it. That is true with respect to maybe coffee pots or maybe television and so on and so forth. So all these things, you know very well, in order for any gadgets to run a program, there must be a processor. Microprocessor is required for the any gadget to interpret the instruction and then take action. The problem with these things were, these were small gadgets, and they were manufactured by different manufacturing companies. So every company had their own way of doing the things. They had their own microprocessor. Okay, so different companies had their own microprocessor, and as well as their microprocessor also in different models, their processor changed. So today, you know very well, I hope most of you who are looking at the phones, you know how the microprocessor in terms of your mobile phone or a smartphone is changing. So different mobiles come up with their own Snapdragon 640, 890, and so on and so forth. Many different versions are coming, and also different processor. Samsung has its own microprocessor for their mobiles. So every gadget had different microprocessor. Now come back to the idea over here. Let me go back to the previous slides, and let me tell you what is the problem that they were facing. So assume that this is not the computer now. This was your microwave oven, or maybe this was your television. Every television or every microwave oven or maybe every coffee maker had its own microprocessor, which was different. So this machine had its own microprocessor. This machine had its own microprocessor. So if you write a program in C or C++ or any other, then you have to compile your code for a specific microprocessor and then execute it. In the same way, you have to compile it again for the other microprocessor and run it. This problem was faced by the Sun Microsystem. So they wanted to make some change in it. So they said that, see, everybody is we want to create a intelligent gadget, but there is a major problem with this intelligent gadget, and that is every intelligent gadget has their own processor. Okay, and when the new chips comes, we will have to recompile it and then put the code again. So the Sun Microsystem funded this was before 1990. It started something, a research project to make the things easier, and they called this project as Green. They codenamed it as Green Project. Okay, The goal was to develop softwares for the intelligent home appliances. Okay, and many people in this particular project were the pioneers, and one among them was James Gosling. So he was a person behind that particular project. Many others were there. Okay, so they started with the C++, like how you are all familiar with the C++. So they said, okay, let's use C++ and let's make our project home appliance intelligent. But they uh, ended up in a trouble, and that is C++ was not portable. What is the meaning of saying portable is, if you compile it once, it runs only on one of the microprocessor, it will not run on the other gadget, and for that also we have to again recompile it. Also, you are all familiar, C++ uses a concept of pointers, which are bit good in some concept, but which are more dangerous as compared to the other programming code. So they decided to start a new programming language, and they named this particular programming language as Oak, because from their window, the place where they were working, from there they could see a oak tree. This was not the tree, but they could see one oak tree, and they said, okay, let's call that particular code as Oak. So they named that programming language as Oak. However, so the person uh, here, what you see in this picture is James Gosling, and he's along with the others. They were the first one to start the Java program. Now, why it is Java? Now you may be wondering. Okay, I was talking about the Oak, and how come now it has become Java? The problem is they wanted to give the name as Oak, but Oak was already registered. This particular programming, this name has been already taken up by somebody else, so they could not register the name. You know very well, there are some laws, rules and regulation. Every country has a law. In the United States, we know very well, there are these copyrights and all these laws are very strict there. So this Oak name was already registered by somebody else, so they could not register their programming language as Oak, so they called it as Java. Okay, so that's how the idea of Java came into a picture. And the person, the main person behind it is him, who is James Gosling. Now, good thing is Java started, but the home appliance, making these home appliances intelligent, didn't go for a very long time. So they wanted to do it, but this project, after some time, even though 1990s it picked up, but over the time this didn't click. So the actually the idea of the Java, what they started with, didn't work well for the home appliances. Fortunately for them, internet was picking up. So there were a lot of things people were doing with the internet. So I don't know whether you are familiar with the history of internet. In the history of internet, the internet was first used by military, then by the researchers and maybe scholarly people in colleges and universities and so on. The last thing that happened to the internet was business people started looking at it, and they found that the internet is very useful for them to communicate and so on and so forth. So, and finally, even the people who are at home, entertainment now today that you are doing, looking at audio video and sharing your video messages, audio messages, all these things are for entertainment. So everybody started using internet, and this was the time, that was 1990s, 1995 or so on. The things started, uh, the internet, that momentum started with this internet and world wide web. So they wanted to have a this internet, people who are using internet, they wanted to have a programming language that is independent of the machine that you are using. So what do I mean by that is, so when you are, if you have a your server that is running in India, and that is being used by your data is used over the internet by somebody who is there in Africa or America or maybe some other place, you cannot expect them to use only Windows or only Linux or only Android. They can use any device. So your code must run on any of these devices. The same idea that they had before. So they write a code and it must run on any home appliances. This was the concept they started with. Now the idea is you write a program and it must run on any different machine. And we know that Java has that capability. You compile it once, you can run anywhere. So the Java started picking up. So let's look at the things how it started. So in 1990, Sun developed a special software that was used in electronic device. Okay, and they named it as Green Project, and they use that name Oak. Okay, and they demonstrated it on so on and so forth. In 1993, World Wide Web started appearing, and people wanted to use the same concept, like you write a code and it will run on any machine. So they started the idea of web applets. So the Java that became famous for that particular thing. In 1994, they created a web browser called as Hot Java. This was the browser. Now, what is a browser if you don't know? You have your Firefox, you have your Chrome, you have your Internet Explorer or Opera. All of them are web browser. They allow you to see the web content. So in olden days, they demonstrated one browser called as Hot Java. Okay, that allows us to run the applet. Okay, in 1995, the Oak, they could not use that Oak and they renamed it to Java because of legal restriction. Okay, and many companies during that time, Netscape was one of the browser. Today, Netscape is not being used up. So we have Firefox today, and Microsoft Internet Explorer. Again, it's not being used up. Microsoft has announced other browser for that. But in olden days, when we were young, Netscape and Microsoft was Microsoft in particular Internet Explorer was the leading only two. Chrome was not there in the picture, and Firefox was just coming up during that time. So the people like people at Netscape and Microsoft, they said that we will support Java, in particular applets, inside our browser. So that was the biggest boon for Java. In 1996, the language started building up. So they said that we will have a lot of things. And finally, the Sun Microsystem decided that it is not enough if you start building, if we just start building it. They said we will go as a community. So let's put an effort and let's make the things standardized and let's use it. So this was the idea that Sun Microsystem started with. Now let's look at the Java different edition. Now when you look at Java, so there are different from the programmer points of view. So Java comes in three different flavor. One is this Java standard edition. We are going to use this. This is used to create client side application. So that means to say standalone application that runs on your machine. So your machine is the client where you have your Windows machines. Whereas you have servers like you have the Yahoo server, the your Google server, and maybe other servers which are high-end machines. For them, if you want to run it, you can write a Java code also, But there, if you want to create an application for the servers, then you have a different flavor of Java, and that is called as Java Enterprise Edition, usually called as JEE. These are used to create the enterprise application like your interactive web pages. So if you are familiar with the JSP pages, so Java server pages, or the servlet, if you want to create this kind of thing, can be done with the enterprise edition. At the same time, Java came up with the Java for micro edition, the Java micro edition. This is the Java that can be used on small devices. So the small devices does not mean your phone only. It can be your microwave oven, or it can be your washing machine, or it can be your DVD player. Anything can have, if there is a need for programming, you can use Java Micro Edition. So Micro Edition is meant for the embedded devices, so smaller devices. Enterprise Edition is meant for building enterprise level applications, the bigger applications, whereas the Standard Edition is meant for developing application for desktops. So we are going to focus in this particular course, we are going to focus on the Standard Edition. So when you are using the Java, so this is called as Java Development Kit, it is used for the developer. So Java development means you want to develop application. Kit, you know very well, Kit contains some pieces, some tools. So JDK that you are going to use is the Standard Edition. So try to download the Standard Edition, not the other two edition. That does, it doesn't mean to say that, I don't mean to say that if you download the Java Enterprise Edition or Java Micro Edition, you can't write a program. You can write a program, but the libraries that it is using is meant for smaller devices. The libraries that it is using is meant for high-end application development. So you will end up in a bigger problem if you try to use download these two things. Again, I don't mean to say that you can't, don't need to use this one. If you are very much interested, you can always download this and experiment on that. There is nothing wrong in that, but for this particular course I expect you to use the Java Standard Edition. Now Java has taken a very long journey. In olden days they used to call JDK, Java Development Kit. The first Java Development Kit came, which is commercially available, was 1.1. Later they released the 1.2 version. Now what is this 1.1, 1.2 and so on? You are going to learn about the versioning in software engineering, which is the other paper that you're going to learn. There you will study what is the meaning of saying putting versions to different software development. So this particular version, Java 2, was more matured, and from that point onwards they called it as Java 2 Standard Edition, SE. So this is Java 2 SE. Let me slightly zoom in, so if you're not able to see it. So Java 2 SE. So 2 is, that's 1.2, which was very famous. Later in the year 2000, they introduced, so there are 2 year span, they introduced Java 1.3 version with the many changes. 2002 1.4 version, and 2004 version 5. In 2006 there are a lot of things that they have done. I will not go into that history. We are not here to study the history class, so it's not required. But one thing you must understand is, in the year 2006 the version that they released is version 6. In there at that time they changed this notion that they were using this J2 here, J2 SE, J2 SE, and here also, so that they removed that 2 from there and they just made it as Java SE. So they directly called it as Java. So today what you see is Java Standard Edition. You don't see J2. So that 2 came because of the version 1.2. Here they started 2 here because it was the first version. The second version they released, they added that 2 there, but they continued it for a very long time. So 2006 they introduced Java SC, and 2011, after very long time, if you notice over here, this is a very long time. They introduced the Java edition 7, that is standard edition. Then they introduced within 3 years they introduced 8 and JDK 9. Now why this so much of gap over here is, during this time unfortunately the company that started this particular whole thing, that is the Sun Micro System, was taken over in the year 2009 I suppose, was taken over by Oracle Corporation. So this whole thing, the whole company was taken over by Oracle Corporation. So now the Java is owned by Oracle, and there is no more Sun Microsystem does not exist altogether because it has been taken over. There are other thing you must understand with this 2000 JDK 9 is the licensing that they were using in these version has changed, has drastically changed with the newer version of Java. So now the question is, suppose in my class, if you want to develop the Java application, what am I supposed to do? Should I download this JDK 9? The answer is no. Please do not download JDK 9. Download the older version JDK 8. So you may ask, sir, why, sir? When again this is 2020, sir. 3 years ago this was released, and you are saying this was released in 6 years ago. This was released. Why, sir? Why we are supposed to download this? The reason is your syllabus was framed. The syllabus that you are using is the 2012 syllabus. Now it is getting updated. Your juniors who are coming, they are luckiest one. They have the newer syllabus. So yours is older syllabus. It is better you stick on with the Java 8. Now again, for some of you who are excited, what will happen if you download JDK 9? Nothing, simple programs will work, but in your syllabus there is something called as applets, the things which it started with. That applet itself is pulled out today. That idea of applet was very crazy thing in olden days. Now it is all gone. So you know very well, once upon a time you used to straighten your hair and trim your head. Now you stopped doing it because the salons are all closed. So now you're back to some other thing. So same thing. The things have changed. This olden days, this applet idea was a very great thing, but later they realized that using applet, there are hackers can hack into the machine, and it creates a lot of security issues. So many browsers said we will not support Java altogether, or leave alone the applet. So this applet idea was not so relevant today because there are other concepts like JavaScript, which is more powerful and more relevant in today's world, or maybe in today's environment. But the support was there for applet till 2014. So don't try to download this one, because the applet will not start, because it is not there. That concept has been pulled out. So be careful with that. Now enough of talking, let me just show you what you can do. Suppose if you want to download Java, what you can do, just go to the Google and search for Java SC, Java 8 SC, Java SC 8, whatever it is, Java 8. Remember, you need to search for Java 8, not 9 or 7 or 12 or 20 or something. We will stick on to Java 8. So try to download Java 8. Okay, you do that thing. I've already done that thing. And don't go to the other site, go to this Oracle site. This is the company that owns Java now. Don't try to download from the other site. You may get some other site which will help you that, but they may have some hidden script that may spoil your entire machine altogether. So just try to download this particular thing. Suppose if you click on this link, what will happen is you will go to the Oracle site, okay, straight away, and it will ask you to register. I've already registered and I have the password. You have to go here and say that I don't, if you don't have the account, create an account. Creating account is simple. You would give your username, the email ID and password 2 times, and it is all done. It will start downloading it. So download that thing. We also need to write a program. We have to have something. We can write the code in Notepad. You can start typing the code in Notepad, but that's going to take too much of trouble. So we are going to use one IDE which is free. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, and that IDE is NetBeans. So you go here, NetBeans IDE. So you go to the NetBeans, you click on this NetBeans, and then go to the NetBeans site. Now this is, I'm downloading NetBeans 6.1. You can download the other version, newer version is there, 6.8, the very latest one. If I'm connected to the internet, you can go to this home of this particular website, and you will notice that you have very latest NetBeans which are available. So very latest. So if you look at here, if you go to the latest one, and if you click on the download, the latest one that you get is, I think, 12. So you can download this one. Just download it, and then what you are supposed to do, install it. How to install it, I will let you know in the other class. Thank you for listening to me. We will meet again in the other class.